Hey, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Jay Young from Northwest Professional Services, and I get the pleasure of hanging out and having a little chat with Kris Freeberg. So we're gonna kind of jump in today, and Kris, I want to thank you for meeting me out here at Homestead in Linden today.
Thank you.
Thank you, most definitely. So before Kris gets to tell us a little bit about what he does and a little bit of his background, I just want to start by introducing us, and our relationship started when you came out to Northwest, and we've done some business development together. We've worked on digging into a Pareto analysis of what our customer base looks like, and actually we were invited to participate in the development of an app that we use all the time that helps us track some very important key performance indicators. And we use that all the time, and that's been fantastic. So that's how we were introduced, and yeah, if you want to tell the folks out in Facebook land a little bit more about what you do and in your business, that'd be great.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me here. I was trained to be a CPA, and maybe it's me, but I just couldn't get very excited about what CPAs do.
Right.
So I was driving down the road one day doing a menial delivery job, saying to myself, well, I got a degree, now what? And these intersecting arrows flashed in my mind's eye, making ends meet,
Right.
And I thought, Eureka, that's it. Everybody needs to make their ends meet. And who is there out there who's dedicated to just helping them do that without having a particular angle, like in how wealthy they want to get, or in selling a particular product, who's out there to just help them be like a financial or economic map maker and navigator. I looked into becoming a conventional financial planner, and I found out that they actually didn't do that much planning. They were basically glorified salespeople, or if they were not paid commissions for selling products, they were being paid management fees that were a percentage of their assets that they managed, which gave them no incentive to help people who need help. It's kind of like expecting somebody to build a house before you write their blueprints for them. I mean, to me, it's backwards. So that was it in a nutshell, and that was 20 and a half years ago. It was February of 1996.
Wow.
And since then, I started out with a little 5-page, well, no website really, just a stationery and a business card.
Wow. Just hitting the road,
And I prospected newlyweds out of the classified ads,
Wow.
And then that was 1996, and then 2000 I got a simple little 5-page website. And now my website is over 100 pages long. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's good to check out. I know I've perused through there, and you have a lot of variety of things. You do a blog and do a lot of book reviews.
Kind of, yeah. Well, actually, I do a news archive instead of a blog.
Okay.
I don't use a blog platform. Maybe I should, but I haven't. I tried using the Facebook Notes feature as a blog. I just was reluctant to create a blog.
Yes.
I thought I don't have that much to say, and I'm not about blogging. But once in a while, I have something to share. So maybe I should have, but I didn't.
No, that's all right.
And so it's all on the website instead in a news archive.
Yep.
But I just start out with 5 pages, and my whole goal is to help people plan and achieve their life savings. And it just kind of expanded from there. Every time I encountered a challenge or a need or a problem, I'd solve it, and then I would create a web page about the solution. So because I figure, well, if it'll help one person, it'll probably help more than one person. So let's make a web page about it. So
that's great.
Now it's a ridiculous website.
That's a good way to do it. I mean, if you're doing those processes anyways, and you're learning things that are working for you, can and clone yourself. That's,
leverage. But I never expect people to go looking for me. So the website is more like my toolbox than it is a marketing thing. I'm always happy whenever anybody happens to find it, but really I built it for me so that when I encounter a particular problem, I can just send people a hyperlink to the solution.
Awesome. Very good. Great. Well, we did a little chatting back and forth before we started rolling here, and we've done some emails back and forth, and we've got a lot of things that I'm excited to dig into. And one of the first questions that I'm going to lead with is, what is your most valuable tool for staying organized and just getting a handle on your daily workflow?
Mm-hmm. So the answer is CRM, stands for Customer Relationship Management, and I discovered CRM. I've been doing CRM since before it was a thing.
Yeah.
And back in the day, it was just a DOSy flat file database program that kept track of names and addresses, and I kept notes on. And it started out teaching, of all things, drum lessons, because this is while I was still finishing my degree. My first career was as a drum and bugle corps drummer in the Commandant's Own U.S. Drum and Bugle Corps, so U.S. Marine Drum and Bugle Corps, so I got out of the Marines, but I hadn't finished a college degree yet. Yeah. So while I was in college, I was giving drum lessons and kind of riding on that reputation as a drum and bugle corps drummer. So I would go out and I would prospect. Back when you could do this, I would actually go into bands in the local high schools, and just give the band teacher a break for an hour and do a clinic.
Wow.
So, and then kids who were interested in lessons would sign up, and they would contact their parents. You can't circulate sign-up sheets as an outsider in a public school setting these days. They were more protective now, and they should be. But back then, you could. So the kids would write their names and their phone numbers and their parents' names, and then I would contact the parents and say, your kid has expressed an interest in drum lessons. How about it? And I needed a way to keep track of all these, because there are a lot of them.
Right.
So I built a little database on a DOS PC, and then in 2003, after I was online, I thought, there's probably a better way to do this than my homemade thing.
Right.
So I went looking around. I discovered there's this thing called CRM, Customer Relationship Management, and took off from there. I actually discovered it in 2003, but then I was apprehensive about storing my contacts on the cloud. Cloud computing hadn't yet become as popular and common as it is now, and I was apprehensive. So I waited 5 years to actually pull the trigger and actually use it. Right. So I discovered it in 2003, and I began using it in 2008. And since then, the CRM field has exploded. There are just a lot more choices now than there were then, including Service Monster, which you found after I alerted you to the existence of this thing called CRM.
Exactly.
And you guys have been using it to rock your business. Service Monster is also based in Bellingham, Washington, right?
Definitely.
Coincidentally.
Yeah.
A lot of good things happen here in Bellingham, like the Woods Coffee, Logos Bible Software.
Oh, yeah. The
list goes on and on. And you're going to interview the Service Monster guy,
Service
right?
Monster, yeah, that'll be coming up soon. I'm very excited about that. It's Joe Kowalski.
That's right.
He's been a mentor of mine, and Service Monster has been what we've selected as our CRM program, and it's a lot more than that as well. But that's how I kind of lucked into Service Monster, was researching CRM, and it turned out to be kind of a secret weapon that's even more than that.
So, kudos to you as a researcher, because I just alerted you to the existence of the general, and I showed you examples of what you could use. And then you went the extra mile. You did your own research, and you found a CRM app that's designed exactly for your industry.
Exactly, yes.
And how has that been working for you guys?
It's been fantastic. I talk a lot about what are the milestones and tipping points in a business where you really saw forward momentum really take off. And I would say, if I could pinpoint a couple different milestones in Northwest since I've been there, that's been a huge one. Just to think that previous to running all our scheduling and our remarketing and all this, it was we were literally scheduling out of a ledger with paper and pencil, and it was just felt like Service Monster was a step out of the Stone Age. The dividends it's paid have been fantastic, just for us to be organized and be able to have that tool to keep track of your customer database. Because I mean, that's valuable, right? I mean, that's
and they have
valuable.
a cool feature. Not to turn this into a Service Monster ad, although, and full disclosure, I'm not an affiliate. I wish I could be. Because it rocks and rolls, but it has a neat feature where it will send out reminder cards,
Yes.
right?
That was the kind of, I like to describe it as, like the hidden gem in Service Monster. I mean, we got it as a CRM and scheduling tool, but the remarketing capabilities of being able to have that contact after you, provide the service and everything wraps and everything goes great, to be able to remarket to your customer base and say, by the way, thanks so much for everything, for having us over, and here's the other things we do. Northwest being a broad range, it's having such a broad range of services, it's been fantastic to maintain that contact.
I mean, some CRMs are strictly paperless. It's just about keeping notes and sending emails and that sort of thing. But some of the more sophisticated ones, like Service Monster, also will. It's kind of, think of it like send out cards. If you've ever heard something like that,
right?
They're kind of a send out cards feature with a very robust back end that is designed to support your industry, the nuances of your industry, the cleaning industry. So anyway, that's an example of CRM. Well, and I believe that CRM is the most significant invisible missing piece of most small businesses' puzzles,
Right.
And that's we're gonna talk about jammed inboxes here, and I'm convinced that for anybody suffering with a jammed inbox with just lots of messages in their Gmail or whatever, and they just pile up, and you just find yourself wading around in this mess all the time. It is cool that it's searchable, but there's a lot to search through, and so what a CRM does in that case is it relieves that storage and search burden from your email host, and you store everything instead in its own individual contact record in a CRM. But that ability, in addition to that, managing emails and just keeping typewritten notes, the ability to send out physical cards often makes a huge difference in effectiveness, especially if you're the demographic, your market is what shall we say, later adopters. They still hard copy for anybody for whom hard copy makes a difference. It's cool to have a CRM that will do that. Yeah,
to have the ability to do that, and Service Monster has some opportunities for email campaigns and stuff. But I love being able to send a physical card. It's a very personal touch, and that's something that's important to us. We're in people's homes. We want to make sure we maintain a personal touch.
Yeah, the one I use doesn't do that, and I don't feel a need for it. But I recognize there's situations. There's another CRM. You mind if I give a shout out?
Oh,
okay.
Of course.
Wise Agent. I did some. Hey, Brandon Wise, you rock, and Amy, love Amy. You know I love you, Amy. And Wise Agent is an example. I had some real estate folks ask me to come and do a presentation in their office to help their folks be more successful on it. And I thought, well, who am I? I mean, what do I know about real estate? So I was looking at it from the perspective of an outsider, and I thought, well, gosh, two things that I'm sure everybody needs in real estate is a written marketing plan, so you're not just winging it or making yourself vulnerable to shiny object syndrome. And the other is a CRM to execute that marketing plan. Because if you think of it, the plan is like a map, and the CRM is like a compass. You bring the two together, now you can get somewhere.
Definitely.
And so I researched the state of the art and best tools and practices in CRM for real estate, and that was a year of research, and it was mind-boggling, because poor real estate folks have so many choices, and they are not pointy-headed, left-brained, geeky, techie people. They are right-brained on the DISC profile, they score high on influence and lower on everything else. So they're disinclined to sit in front of a screen and pushing buttons, so they're disinclined to do the work of figuring out which is the best CRM for them, and they just tend to go with whatever gets thrown at them, and they wind up not liking it most of the time. Well, I'm left-brained, introverted, geeky, pointy-headed, all the things that real estate people are not. So for me, it was cool.
Yeah.
And so I dug into it for a year, did the research, and found Wise Agent. And Wise Agent is like a service monster for real estate.
Okay.
And it also supports things like physical letters and newsletters and stuff like that. So it's important to know that there's this thing called CRM, and you need it.
Yes.
But you got so many, whether you realize it or not.
Yes,
you need it.
Exactly.
and a lot of times in my work, part of the human dilemma is we don't know what we don't know. And if you don't know what you don't know, how can you search for it?
Right.
So people like me as a researcher, or salespeople in general, the role of a salesperson is to say, look, I have more economic incentive to research than you do as a customer. Right. Because when you buy something that you didn't know about, I get paid. So I have more incentive to research than as a vendor than you have as a customer. So as a customer, and this is the problem with search, when we yield the initiative in the sales, buying and selling endeavor, when we yield initiative to the customer, we're presupposing that they know what they need and they know what they're looking for, and the truth is they don't. And that's not because they're stupid. It's just because of the economic incentives involved. Vendors have an incentive to do more research than customers have, because when something new and awesome gets noticed and purchased, the vendors get paid.
Right.
I'm rambling a little bit here, but it pertains to like the research that I did. Why did I have an incentive to research? But with CRM, whether you know it or not, whether you know what it is or not, whether you realize it or not, you need it. And just trust me, you need it. And like I say, it is the most common invisible missing piece of most small business puzzles. And if they just had the CRM in place, combined with good, caring people who actually engage and use it, they will win. It will solve all kinds of problems. It will relieve. If you've ever watched Clark Howard, and he's kind of a cynic, and he likes to talk about customer no service. Right. And why is that funny? Because it's true. And why is customer service in general so disappointing? Well, it's because the small businesses don't have a way to, they don't have a CRM in place. Right. CRM is that secret sauce that puts you in a position to shift from being reactive to proactive in the way that you interact with your customers. And customers need that, and they really feel the love when you anticipate their needs and fill them before they even dawns on them that they had a need.
Absolutely. I mean, it's right in the acronym. It's customer relationship management. It's the tool. I like to think of the CRM, the paradigm of it as that's where I do the work. I mean, it's the compass, because it can be very daunting when you step into say, all right, time to get work done, time to do some marketing. Boy, where do you start? And to have the data in your CRM to be able to say, this is where the work starts, and I'm going to manage this relationship through this tool. It's a fantastic place to start. It's a good compass.
Yeah, I'm dealing with a situation right now. I can't be very specific about it. Confidentiality is very important in my work, and that's why when you go to my testimonials page, you're not going to see any names.
It's anonymous.
All right. I can give references on request, but I never publish the identities of my clients. So, having said that, just today I was corresponding with one, and he was let's see, how shall I put this? He's having some problems. I'm in the problem-solving business. So what we just agreed to do today was, look at, you know who your kind of iffy, your dissatisfied clients are, okay? You know who they are. I gave him a whole list of everybody, and I said, could you just, flag the ones who are likely to, who have some sort of beef, and get that back to me, and then we're going to put together a campaign to, instead of waiting for them to call you,
yes.
we're gonna go above and beyond the call. We're gonna wow them. We got a strategy to wow his iffy clients, the ones who've had some kind of issues in the past. We're not going to wait for something to go wrong again. We're going to do a campaign to wow them. And I wish I could be more specific exactly how we're going to do that, but sorry.
Yeah, well, I think that is out of the box, and that's one thing I definitely appreciate your approach on everything.
Yeah.
It's you come from an out of the box approach, and to be proactive to that degree is that's very impressive. And I think to step back a little ways, like you mentioned, going into the schools and giving your time in order to get something. That's a paradigm, and that's a concept that is extremely relevant today. I mean, if you look at social media, that's what we do. We give content, we give interesting conversations, and we're not charging for this. I do it because it's fun. I'm always looking for professional mentorship, and when we get together, we're going to have discussions like this anyways. Why not share it with everybody?
Well, like you follow Gary Vaynerchuk, right?
Yes.
Okay, so he wrote a book called The Thank You Economy, right? And he makes that point, right? It's all about giving, you know? Yeah,
Definitely.
just like cast your bread on the water, right? Yeah.
Well, on the subject of books, I know you are a voracious reader. I know you read a lot, and a lot of the stuff you read is very much in this vein. It's an interest of yours, but beyond that, I mean, you read a lot. So I'm always interested. Is there books that you're constantly recommending to people, or do you have favorites that you refer back to quite a bit?
Okay, so is it okay to talk about both business and non-business
Business and
books?
personal, anything that's had an influence on you.
I've got a little outline I'm following here, and I may make this, I may publish it and make it available to everyone who wants to see it. It's kind of like, you're patterning this program after like Tim Ferriss's,
Yes,
right?
That's been a big influence on me.
And that after his podcast, he publishes show notes.
Show notes,
right?
yep.
Yeah. So I went ahead. I took the initiative to do this.
Great.
And it's got hyperlinks to pretty much everything that I feel matters. But Jay wrote. What did he write? Pardon me while I put my glasses on. He wrote what books. What books would you? Let's see. Reread.
Yep.
Give as gifts.
Yes.
And recommend. So I'll just read the list to you. First is the Bible. I reread that. I give it as gifts. Next is something you probably never heard of. It's called The Great Synecdoches, and that is it's kind of like an encyclopedia. Think of it, the lives of the saints, that they're commonly called. I call it a hagiographical encyclopedia. And I will tell you what, you want to talk about why does this matter in the context of business and economics? Well, we've been at war now for 15 years, if you count since 9/11. And what does it cost us, in terms of just treasure and blood? It's huge. The country is in $20 trillion in debt now, and a good chunk of that is war. If you review, let me ask you something. Do you know what caused World War I?
If I went back and I thought hard enough and I remembered my Dan Carlin's hardcore history, I could probably tell you, but it escapes me right now.
Not sure. It's not at the top of your head, is it?
Well, I think it was the assassination of Archduke
Ferdinand. By whom?
Oh, it was a disgruntled...
a kid.
Yes, that's right.
What's up with that kid?
Yeah.
That kid fired the shot that kicked off this domino effect of wars that preceded both your lifetime and mine.
Yeah.
And we're still paying for that today. Well, having read the good chunk of the great cynic Cerestes, it isn't just religious, it's about world history. And even if you are a card-carrying atheist, that information matters to all of us. It's not just, it's world history. And I know who that kid was, and I know it animated him. I know why he was so whacked out, you know, and it matters today in 2016. So yeah, I give that encyclopedia set, so to speak, as gifts, you know. And it's helped me in business, seriously. Okay, next will be the ante and post-Nicene fathers. That's church history, patristics. Next is a book called the Philokalia. It means the love of the good, and it's a 1,000-year compendium also of patristic wisdom. And then another one is a book called Nihilism by Seraphim Rose. Nihilism is the belief in unbelief. It's the belief that there is no truth, and nothing can be known, and it's rampant now. I'm firmly convinced that a slight majority of our population are what I call closet nihilists. In other words, they may have never heard the word. But if you examine how they live, it's evident that they don't believe that such a thing as truth. You know, and I every time I would counter in nihilism, I would feel perplexed. I thought, how do you do that? How can you believe there's no truth? But, you know, the very statement "there is no truth" is a truth claim. Anytime you conjugate the verb to be, you're making a truth claim, whether you admit it or not, whether you realize it or not. You are, and that always perplexed me until I read that book, and that was a huge game changer for me. Then I had a word for it. I thought I said, "Oh, that's a thing," you know. It has a name, and and here's the history of it, you know. And once I learned that, then I said, "Aha! Now I could I could wrap my head around it," you know. As far as business is concerned, I brought a few of them here. One is Gary Keller's book, The Millionaire Real Estate Investor, and you can see that whenever I dive into a book, I go wild with the tabs, you know, so I can look back on it. And I thought this was so awesome. I took 28 pages of typewritten, single-spaced, hyperlinked notes. And I built an app. In this book, he describes the specifications. He gives the field by field, record by record specifications for his dream database for investing in real estate. And I read the book 10 years after it had been published, and nobody had designed that app yet. So I did it, and it's on my website. Awesome. So that was a really cool book. This is a real gift. A gift. This is an unusual book because it's so specific. Let's see. Another one would be Keller. This is an outcome of all that real estate research I did. Keller and Papasan's book, The One Thing. And this is a repudiation of the multitasking myth and the affirmation that we need to do one thing at a time. If we get into a discussion of Pareto, he talks about doing Pareto on your Pareto. In other words, the Pareto analysis identifies the critical few, like an example of sales. 80% of your sales come from 20% of your customers, more or less. We did a Pareto analysis on your at work, right? And we identified it wasn't exactly 20, but it was a minority, right? And you can do a Pareto analysis also on your sales by product or service that you sell, and know what those key critical few are. Pareto is everywhere. It started out. He was an Italian economist who had a garden, and he noticed that that his garden did not grow equally. He had a pea crop, and he noticed that most of his peas grew in a little corner of the garden. Well, why was that? You know, he wants the whole garden to flourish, but just a piece of it was. Well, why? So that was the thing. He studied and learned the answer, and that enabled him to have a more fruitful garden. You know, so that's where the whole Pareto thing comes from. But what these guys say is you can do it once you know the critical few. You can run a Pareto analysis on that. And over and over and over again until you get down to one thing. You know,
Yeah,
And
this is very, 80/20 is very near and dear to my heart. It's so applicable in so many different ways. And if you're having trouble and you're trying to drill down into a problem, chances are starting with some form of an 80/20 analysis will give you an exceptional place to start.
Yep. Let's see. I have another one. I didn't bring it, but I mentioned on the list. It's called the narcissism epidemic.
Yep.
And the reason this matters is because the authors contend that narcissism is not just an annoying here and there, now and then thing. It's an epidemic that has afflicted our culture during my entire lifetime. I was born in 1963. You were born
79.
1979. Okay. So for both you and me, to us, it's been like water is to a fish. It's been our element, and we don't even see it, you know. Well, this book was written by a man and a woman, so there's no gender bias in it. He's a Republican, she's a Democrat, so there's no political bias in it. And they explain, they prove that that it is an epidemic, and they break it down, explain the whole thing. And the reason it matters economically is because narcissism, there's an entitlement mentality involved in narcissism that motivates people to do what? To buy things they can't afford.
Yeah.
And to fake it. And to pretend that they're richer than they really are, you know? And we all pay for that when that happens. And they contend that narcissism accounts for the last big crash we had, 2007, 2008.
Yeah.
It creates bubbles, you know.
Yes.
Narcissism causes economic bubbles, and that's why it's everybody's business to know about this, to name it, and to resist it. Really, not just fight it, but heal it. It's an illness, and it's an illness from which we do have hope of healing if we're willing to be honest enough to diagnose the sickness. So that was a really valuable book to me that I refer back to a lot. And then the work of Pete Peterson. Pete is a billionaire. He's the retired CEO of Blackstone Corporation, which is America's largest landlord. And he's just a gem, a sweetheart of a man. And Pete, I hope you're watching this. Let me fly out to New York and buy you dinner sometime. Let's talk. And I'm loving your book. I read your biography, and this is his latest of many books that he likes. He's got a great sense of humor. He'll joke about how he writes books nobody reads because he writes about the national debt and how to fix it, you know. And this is his latest, and I'm almost done with it. Steering Clear. He wrote this in 2015. Gem of a man. And let's see. I brought a couple more here that I think we'll talk about later when we talk about game changers. Yeah.
Great.
So those are. Do you have any questions? Did I miss anything?
No,
books?
That's fantastic. I mean, you've got a couple in there that the one thing is something that I'm very interested in digging into a little more. That sounds fantastic.
Okay. Oh, I should back up. You asked about ways to stay organized. I actually have three answers for that. The first is a CRM. Yep. The second is a time management app that I developed, and it keeps track of time as though it were money.
Right.
Normally we think about time management, we think about, well, you should use a calendar. You should do time blocking. Like, you know, time blocking is such a big deal that Jay here, hi Jay, Jay here has started a separate course. He surveyed his readership and he said, well, what's the one thing from the one thing that you need the most help with? And everybody said time management, you know.
That's a common discussion I enter in all the time.
And so he says, okay, well, if that's your one thing, then I'm going to help people with time blocking. Well, time blocking is just planning, you know. And the question is, did you do what you planned to do?
Right.
And if you didn't, why? And now what should we do about that, you know?
Right.
So what my app does is it accounts for time as though it were money. So you can not just know what you wanted to do, you can know what actually happened. And usually the two are different, you know. And then the third hack is my journal. Okay.
Yes.
And I point out to you in our notes how Sir Richard Branson, who's the CEO of Virgin the company, I think it's mainly airlines, but the guy's all over the place. I mean, he owns an island in Tahiti. He can afford anything, right?
Yes, I think he's like currently one of his things is he's going to space.
Yeah. That guy can buy anything he wants. What's his most prized possession? It's his notebook.
Wow. Yeah.
It's his notebook. Okay, so this is my journal, and I think we all need something like this, whether it's a notebook that you carry in your hip pocket like Branson does, or something like this. And you notice I have tabs in here for significant things. In this volume, I'm really working heavily on in the property management industry, and so I have a tab here for each of the major property management companies that I am prospecting. In addition to my CRM, these guys are so important to me that I've set aside little sections in my journal to keep track, one of which is Blackstone, and that's how I stumbled upon Pete. So Pete, I'm prospecting your business. Well, you're in my book. And go ahead.
No, I was going to say, this resonates with me. You know, I always ask people, you know, are you paper or are you paperless? And you know, we've entered into some discussions as well that primarily I'm on an initiative to become paperless, but my journal is one place I do not plan to substitute that. I think you mentioned what was you said, you know, having a journal is it's the one place you have in this world that holds still while everything else.
Yeah, I wrote it's indispensable because it holds still while everything else is constantly moving and changing.
Yeah, I thought about that as I was journaling this morning, got up early, and you know, just getting the thoughts down on paper, just knocking them down, and yeah, I thought about that, and I couldn't agree more.
Yeah,
it's very valuable.
I wrote further, it's where you can compose yourself and develop all your brilliant ideas and manage change. Think about composing yourself, the importance of composing yourself, or the importance of composure, and how little of it there is. Like, look at the presidential election right now. I mean, how well composed are people? What they're putting on Facebook and everything. People are just snarking at each other. I'm saying, you know what? Whenever I feel like snarking on Facebook, you know where it goes instead? It goes here. It does not go on Facebook. Okay.
It's a good place. It's a safe place.
Compose yourself, for crying out loud. Exactly. And use something like this to do it, okay?
Yeah. That's awesome.
All right. So those are my three hacks. In summary, CRM, time, not just time blocking, but time tracking. And whether you're paid by the hour or not, I hope we'll get into that. And then a journal where you compose yourself. Nice. Written journal.
Awesome. Well, a couple of the other things that we were, we touched on using. I always ask people about their inbox. Any tips for that? And you had mentioned the CRM is a great place to organize that and kind of tame that beast.
Yeah, and then Dave Allen, the patriarch, the grandfather of getting things done, the guy who wrote the book on getting things done.
The book, yeah.
I read his book, I reviewed it. He wrote it in 2001. I read it in 2008. I wrote up a review. It's hyperlinked in these show notes. And he gives some tremendous hacks for taming your inbox, using a series of subfolders. So that and instead of elaborating on it here, I'll just say, you know, look up the book review, and better yet, after you've read the review, read the book. Get Dave's book, because he wrote the book on it. And just you know, select all, delete. What I call triaging your inbox. That means just getting rid of the junk. And I love to be able to select all. Select all, delete. Right. Yeah. That combined with CRM, a CRM that will do email, and they don't all do it. Right. That's one of the differences. Like Wise Agent, if you're using Gmail, Wise Agent is probably your CRM, unless you're in a particular vertical. And there are others that if you're not using Gmail, there's what's called Post Office Protocol or POP integration. There's also IMAP, I guess. And so somehow getting your CRM to work, talk to your email, so that you can handle the email inside the CRM. And not all CRMs do that.
Right.
Or
There's
they'll do them
workarounds.
Or
they'll
do them differently. Right. You know, some use a Dropbox email address or something. You know. So when you talk about CRM with respect to email, taming that inbox, the way to figure that out is to focus on the email functionality of your CRM and really to dive in and see ask the question, how exactly does that work? Because the answer to that question is going to drive your choice of which CRM you use.
Yep, it's an important decision for sure. Well, there's one question that I usually ask all the guests. I'm always interested in, we try to manage all these things and we try to jump on and ride this beast and get a hold of it, whether it's our business, managing our time. But one thing that I never like to overlook is managing our stress. Everybody has, and Wes Herman, when I interviewed him a couple weeks ago, had some great comments on that stress is a matter of perspective. And I think about that all the time. So thanks, Wes. But for you, managing that aspect of your life, is there anything that's really worked for you? Any breakthroughs you've had? Or
well, my answer as an economist is improve your income. I think most people, the reason they're stressed is because their income is inadequate, and for some reason they've been conditioned to presume that that's not negotiable, and that. But I really think a lot of the stress that people deal with, lack of time, conflict about resources. My house is not big enough. I don't have enough bathrooms. I'm stressed out about affording groceries, keeping the lights on. I would encourage you to consider that in the long run, everything's negotiable. And it may not be negotiable now, 3 months from now, this year, the next 3 years. Right. But eventually, if you make it a goal, if you plan long term and you do the math on your life, your income is negotiable. And I really think a lot of the stress that people feel is because they just haven't. That hasn't dawned on them yet. They just figure I'm stuck with what I got, and I'm stressed out because of it. So the long term, I would say stress relief, and then one of the reasons I'm in business is to do the math on your life and figure out how much income you need, and then go for it unapologetically. Now we're doing this broadcast out of Linden, Washington, which is a deeply religious community that I love. It's one of the reasons we're here. And in religion, a lot of religions, there's a lot of confusion, uncertainty, fear, mixed messages about money. Like a lot of Christians I know are afraid of prospering economically because they read the one about the camel and the eye of the needle. And it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven, or go to heaven. And people say to themselves, gosh, I want to go to heaven, so I better not get rich. I better stay poor. I better stay poor so I can go to heaven. You know what I mean? Yeah. I think that conversation's going on in the back of a lot of people's minds, and it's self-defeating, So I'm not saying we should disregard it, but I'm saying we should face that issue and work it out. And it took, I still wrestle with it.
I think that's a great answer.
Because what it means is if you do well, you have a huge responsibility. Now, my friend and my hero, Pete Peterson, I think he's really shown us a great example of how to do that. Warren Buffett's doing a great job. Bill Gates doing a great job. It's just saying that if you become wealthy, if you're fortunate enough to become wealthy, with that wealth comes an incredible responsibility. And face it and prepare yourself. Gird your loins. Anybody who is poor and looks on the wealthy with a lot of resentment and envy and that sort of thing, thinking, well, those fat cats, they've just got it easy. You can't imagine the responsibilities, the burdens that they carry, the taxes that they happily pay. Happily pay. Both Peterson, a Republican, and Buffett, a Democrat, agree they don't pay enough taxes. Those guys want to pay more taxes, both of them. And they're just saying, look, it's not a question of whether or if, it's a question of how. Let's figure it out. They're saying, hey, let's figure out to change tax law so that fat cats like us pay more taxes. They actually want to do that,
right.
you know, which defies the stereotype, right, of the greedy rich guy.
Right.
Yeah. So that's as far as I can tell. With fortune comes incredible responsibility. And I think that was really Jesus' message when he talks about the camel in the eye of the needle. You know, doesn't mean don't be rich. It means gird your loins, because you're going to have a lot of responsibility.
Yes. Well, that's fantastic.
And there are a lot of temptations and pitfalls to avoid. A lot of hazards.
Yep, that goes along with it. Definitely.
So gird your loins.
Good. So,
let's see. Did I digress?
No, I think you're pretty well on track. That was the question about.
Stress.
Yeah, what stresses you out?
Yeah, and then in the meantime, prayer, worship, contemplation, exercise. I would say rest, adequate rest, and a nutritious diet.
Yes.
Drink a lot of water. There's another guy wrote a book on habits of successful people. Kevin Cruz. That's it. Hi, Kevin. Awesome book. And he talks about drinking enough water. Yeah. Because you know what? Your brain's all water, right?
Yes. It's simple.
Yeah, really. Yeah. So I keep a glass carafe of tap water filled at all times. First thing I do when I get up in the morning, have a sip of water. Last thing I do when I go to bed, have a sip of water. I probably drink 2 or 3 carafes of water throughout the day.
Yeah, you know. I think that's pretty much unanimous. I don't think anybody drinks enough.
And for whiskey lovers like you and me, all the more important. If you're gonna partake of that particular pleasure, you better be drinking a lot of water, or you're gonna poison yourself.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Important. Yeah. Important tips.
Yep.
Well, we got a lot of stuff in the show notes here, and we've covered a lot today. I want to kind of wrap up with a couple more short form questions, and then we'll give you a chance to kind of chat about where people can connect with you and anything you want to ask of the folks.
Yeah, and I'm glad we wrote this up, because we don't have time to cover all your questions.
There's a lot, and I knew we were going to go real deep.
Yeah.
So I definitely will. I'll be happy to post up the show notes, or maybe a link to them, or whatever it takes.
Yeah, because you asked about what keeps me up at night, tools and tricks, dream job. We haven't been able to cover that, but if you want to skip that and just have refer people to the show notes.
Yeah, I think we'll go to the show notes, and then there's no rules here. We could definitely do like a part 2 down the road. I expect if you guys have any questions that you want to see asked during these podcasts. During these interviews, most definitely post them up. I'm always interested in that, and we'll probably do a part 2 down the road.
If you dive into CRM, I've learned how to using Screencast-O-Matic.
Yes.
Do you use that or something like it?
No, I'm exploring the same thing where we're actually capturing for training for my guys.
Well, I've arrived at a decision on that one, and I'm using Screencast-O-Matic. So if people have specific questions about specific CRM solutions and exactly how to and best uses, best practices, we can actually create some demo videos on how to grok that.
That's perfect. I am actually shopping for one. Joe Kowalski recommended Camtasia to me, which rates extremely high. A little pricey, but full of features. So I'm interested in checking that out. I'm shopping right now.
Yeah,
so very cool.
Just digging into that's a breakthrough. Having a tool. I don't care which one you use. It's like CRM. I don't care what CRM you use. Just find one and use it. Same thing. In terms of making, just answering how-to questions, indispensable tool.
Great.
And if your audience wants that kind of thing, it'd be effortless to create one or a series of videos to answer those kinds of questions.
That's fantastic. If anybody has any interest in that, definitely put up your requests for sure in the comments. Most definitely.
By the way, before we close, I would like to give a shout out to Lolly. And Lolly gave me this tie, and I tied a special Eldridge knot.
I was going to comment on that. I've never seen that before.
Yeah, well, I that's why I'm late.
Nice.
So hi, Lolly. Snickers misses you, and hope you're feeling well.
Great. Well, before we wrap up, is there anything that you want to ask specifically? Where can folks connect with you? What's the best place to get in touch with you? Or
well, just I'd say pull up these show notes. My contact info is on there. Got a website, makeanendsmeet.com. Making, like bringing home the bacon, no G. MAKINENDSMEET.com. And I have a standing offer to write a free lifetime savings plan that helps you do the math on your life, so you can understand how much income and assets you need to afford your goals without being greedy. Figuring out where your sweet spot is, how much is enough.
Which makes a lot of sense.
We economists are all about optimality, knowing where your sweet spot is. And I think most of us, because we don't know, like we talked about earlier, part of the human dilemma is that you don't know what you don't know. So we will shoot for a particular income and a savings goal, but because we don't know everything, we're probably aiming low. And then life surprises us, and that's why the national savings rate is so low, why there's so much stress about debt. You want to talk about eliminating stress? Earn enough income to pay off your debts.
Yes.
So that lifetime savings plan offer is free of charge. And then let's think of it as the map, and then I earn my living helping people navigate their journey once the map is created.
Oh, that's quite an offer. That's very cool. Well, I just want to thank you for your time, Kris. It was awesome. And I know we didn't get, we just scratched the surface of what we had here, but I will get those show notes up. And it was great talking to you. It's always,
thank you.
I always appreciate your perspective. You have a long view on things, which very much resonates with the core of what we do at Northwest. It's trying to create relationships with customers for life and over the lifetime of the relationship, in the home, the lifetime of your home. So that really resonates with me, and I think you have a great approach to everything you do, and I really appreciate how you've helped us out as well.
Thank you. Thank
Great.
you.
Well, I just want to thank you guys again. I'm Jay Young from Northwest Professional Services. Kris Freeberg, his website is Making Ends Meet, and check out the show notes, and I will see you guys next time. Thank you very much.
Bye.